Yeah. Okay, now you can hear me. Okay. Okay, great. All right, we'll get started. Technical difficulties this Wednesday. So, so yeah, with no further ado, thank you everyone for joining us on the call today. Again, hope you've had a great week thus far, and look forward to starting this conversation in regards to visibility versus accountability. In the invite, there were a few questions that we wanted you to ponder as you went about this week. That's going to help facilitate some of the discussion today. One of those questions were, have you asked Black people what they need? The second question was, well, now what? What actions will you be taking to make a change? And then the third question we wanted you to think about was, what are your thoughts on the removal of Confederate statues, monuments, the renaming of streets, military bases, and schools? And with that being said, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Micah Lewis. I started the Village Collective about a year ago. I am also the CEO and founder of a travel related company by the name of My Bag Check. And I won't circle back and reread everything from order's sake. I'll just go ahead and introduce Leslie, who will be leading the discussion today. And before I do that, sorry. So if you have any questions, just pose them in the chat function there, and Leslie will be able to see them and be able to ask your question directly to her. To make it easy to keep track of whose question is whose, and as well as allow everyone to be able to ask their questions, if you could just simply put a number next to it. So the first person who has a question puts the number one. The second person who has a question puts the number two, and so on and so forth, to make this a little bit easier for me to be able to facilitate this. With that being said, I will not do another false start. Leslie, you can now you can now start.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I know there's some new people joining. So, just to recap quickly, I'm Leslie Short. I'm the owner of the Cavu Group, and I help companies and organizations expand beyond their current culture. Needless to say, in the culture we are in now, I've been busy. Um, from last week, asking those questions to what's happened in the last, I don't know, 8 hours week has been crazy. I actually just finished an interview with Fox 5 on brands and race. And they asked me to speak about um, Aunt Jemima going off of the packaging, which I have found out that she's somehow related in my family from the South. That's a whole nother discussion. I have to do whatever 3Me or whatever it's called to find that out. But also about Uncle Ben today. So, needless to say, when we started this conversation a week ago, part of it was so many companies putting out statements or putting the black box up, or the protesters wanting to take down monuments. And so, this is a conversation. If you've never been with me or with us, know that this is interactive. So you don't have to wait for question to answer. You can just start typing your questions in as we're discussing, because this really is a discussion amongst all of us. So when I got the call to do this interview about Aunt Jemima, I had already posted it as soon as it hit the news wire. I saw it this morning and posted it quickly. And the questions were posed. Do I think we should? And I think I'm not outing you because I think he's on the call right now. Should we be speaking about companies that do good, or should we not be speaking about companies that do good? And I'm like, it's a combination of both. The cover of Time, I had it somewhere here. It says it's the day of awakening. And it really is, for brands, for people. So what does that mean? I hate the word woke. I won't say woke. I think we're awakening to understanding, or hopefully realizing, that change needs to happen. I'm also hoping, though, that within this change of people being so visible, writing statements, and visible taking down things and removing logos, that it is not a knee-jerk reaction, but a true commitment to build, not only take a face off a package, which, I don't want to give a history lesson, but that was a real woman, if you don't know that. And she was from the South. And if you go back to the very beginning of the story, they found her at a fair. They worked on the recipe together. He took the recipe, he being a white man, that the power at that point, took the recipe, put her on the packaging, only gave her a certain amount of money. Her family now went back and tried to sue, I guess about maybe 8 years, and the court said they didn't show enough to say that they were part of the family. So they got nothing. Because that was also a question. What happens to the family getting paid now? Well, I've done my research. They haven't been getting paid. So then you have Uncle Ben. I think we all know that's from someone being in the house, being the houseboy or servant, slave, whatever you want to call them at that time, depending on what era we are. So here's the questions that I also pose to you. Someone said to me, well, what am I supposed to go to the supermarket and buy? I was like, well, there's Biscuit. They're like, no, I go for Aunt Jemima. And I'm like, okay, so that's a brand name, clear. So what they will do, I don't know, to be determined, of course. I also hope that they're looking not only externally, going, we're going to take this off. Because honestly, I think, again, my opinion, I hope you all chime in, the thought of just taking off pictures and taking off logos and tumbling down statues without any type of context for our history and for our young people to learn the history is problematic for me. Now, I know how you feel, Mike, about these statues. I know you want them down, and you wanted them down yesterday. I'm not saying that they should not come down. I'm halfway. I'm not gonna lie. I'm riding the fence on this one. If you know me, I don't usually ride the fence. But on this one, I'm a little bit on the fence. I want them to come down, but before they come down, I wish there would be a discussion. And let's be clear, half of the states in the city aren't taking them down. Protesters are taking them down. So there is no discussion on what's happening with them. But as they're coming down, we can't just take a logo off, a face off, a statue down, and the history goes away. So this is history. It is the fact of what history is for America. And we're only speaking about America now, clearly in other countries. But right now, today, this is part of our history. And it must be preserved, because I'm hoping that the next generations, as we see, are standing up and going for it. You know, I hate to put it this way, they're balls to the walls to it, whether they kind of know what they're doing or not. They are making impact. My issue is, if you're taking everything down, where is it being preserved? Because we do need to go back. Yes, I know you're ready to get in.
I'm rubbing my hands here because, I definitely sit on clearly on the other side of the fence to that. And so what I would say, as far as like the viewpoint that I have from the other end about why these statues should be taken down, is being in part, and I can only speak about the knowledge that I have and the personal experience I have. So for anyone on the call that doesn't know, I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville was named after, obviously, Andrew Jackson. And there's a lot of history in Jacksonville that's racist history. So when you're talking about our high schools that were named after the Ku Klux Klan founder, Nathan B. Forrester, when you have Robert E. Lee, all these Confederate generals, names of schools like Jeb Stuart, Kirby Smith, I'm trying to think of all the other names that are named around there, and the statues that sit around Jacksonville that commemorate this pain that people have. We already know the history, so we don't need to have a commemoration of that history. The stuff needs to go. But I think if there's going to be an agreement, a midpoint there, then highlight some of the Black history or some of the other Asian history that's there, and not just say, I went through school in the public school system as well as through college. At no point did I take up or had available to me Asian American history. I have Black American history. It was always, the Civil War, pre-Civil War, after Civil War. Our European history was before some Renaissance, after some Renaissance. So we've had the history there. And so I think there needs to be an awakening, as you say, to other cultures out there, and tasking some of the local artists in this new age to come up with different things to commemorate the history rather than having a general on the back of a horse at every park stop. So that's my feelings on it. And that's why I feel that I don't have not a tear that's shed about any protester taking down any of those statues, not only in the US, but across the world.
Again, I get that the statues should come down, but I am concerned that we don't teach history in schools. You just said it. We don't learn about Asian. We don't learn about European. We don't learn history. And so, as much as I want to see things, and we're switch over to brands and everything else that's been happening, but as much as I want to see these statues come down, somewhere, and anyone on the call that can do this, I'm not going to take this task, but I'm happy to work with someone or someone that knows someone, because it could be happening. Where is the, for lack of a better word, Wikipedia page of, on 19th Street and Miami Avenue stood Jefferson's thing, and this is history, and this is why it's gone, and this is why it's gone. I want context in this, because we lose so much. So rename the schools. I'm good at. I don't want to walk into something, which we do every day, by the way. Depending on where you live. Yes.
Can I add another comment to that as well? Yes. And then I'll open it up, because Brian did have a question, and it looks like Nance had a question after that. But I will say it's already been documented. I took a trip in December, 2 weeks before Christmas, and I went to Amsterdam, Prague, Morocco, Rome, as well as Paris in a 2-week trip. While I walked through the streets of Prague, they had all the history there about the wars that they had, the churches and everything. It had that history there. So it's being preserved on a not only a national basis, but a global basis. That history is there.
Where do you find it here? And where does the 5th grader find it?
Well, I'll ask that. I'll put it back onto that. Where do we find the Black history at? Where do we find that? Where do we find that? So I think to make room for some of the other history to be told. Like, for example, and not to talk, I was walking with a friend here through Central Park, and we were having a discussion about the history of Central Park. And this particular New Yorker that had been here their entire life did not know the history of Washington Square Park. And, it was diseased and it was given to blacks at the time and then taken back as well. The same way with Seneca Village in Central Park. So the only thing that's there is a little plaque on, I think, 85th or 86th Street that commemorates that. But how many people pass that? So we need that space. And I say we, I'm talking about everyone else. I'm talking about Asian Americans. I'm talking about, Indian Americans and Black Americans as well, too. We need that space. And the way that space can be done is by tearing down the things that cause hurt to certain people. Because while being Black in the North here, you may not care about the Confederate flag, but coming from the South, it's a really big thing. It's the same as the swastika to Nazis that it is to Black people as well. And so it is very hurtful to still see that and still see people still being proponents to wave these things. And I'll leave that with just that comment there. And I'll let you call out.
I'll let you start asking questions, but to that comment, that whether we take them down or not, and again, I'm not saying not to take them down, and I'm definitely not saying leave them up. There is someone this week that walked down the street walking his dog in a KKK full outfit. So taking things away is it's still a mindset for those that is their belief. And we must always, and I say it every week, understand that everyone is not for change. Everyone is not for equality on this. So it goes back to companies doing what they did by putting these statements out and going, oh, it's enough. So I'm visible against all my, because my no plans on actually being accountable or making systemic change. So I saw questions coming in. So, I don't half read the chat. Weren't most Confederate statues, something from Brian.
Well, my question was, it's sort of evolved, but it seems like this history, specifically the statues, is all something from the last century. It's not the history. I mean, the purpose of that was really to intimidate people and to threaten people, not to commemorate the Confederacy only lasted 5 years. I've got underwear that lasted longer than the Confederacy. So it seems like that's not really the purpose. The purpose has always been to intimidate people, and so that's the reason. Then they should come down, and I don't think they need to be preserved. And
I don't think the statues themselves need to be preserved. I just want all of our history and I want the history before that, during that, and after that. I just feel like we're losing knowledge. I think
that's all of us to be able to share, right? So it's like, I've like in the last 2 years, I learned of the Compton cafeteria riots that happened before Stonewall, 6 years before Stonewall, or 3 years before Stonewall. And so it's like, now that is something that has become part of in gay history, is like, this is something. And I think that's, all of us know different, I'm going to call them factoids, but that sort of diminishes what they are, but different pieces of our history. And it's upon all of us to be able to share that and get that in there. But having statues and commemoration, that's really, times evolve. And I think that we need to evolve with those times, right? And to be able to do what we can. But I think that the debate about a statue is different than the debate in school. Right?
You froze a little bit, but I agree with you. Oh, statues are a different conversation. So Nancy, I'm just going to do questions right now, and then we're jumping in. Nancy, you said, what if we took the approach that Germany did after the Holocaust, created museums instead of monuments? Then Anne said the statues we have in Charlottesville, Virginia, went up in the early 1900s in places that are heavily trafficked and meant to intimidate people. So same thing as Brian's comment. Absolutely. And Steve, isn't the problem that we learn selected history? Who writes the history? People in power. Absolutely, Steve. And that's why I'm like, at this point, where is the collective? And now maybe I'm just dreaming. Where is the collective that comes together that pieces factoids of different histories so that we actually have this somewhere outside of a museum is what I'm looking for. Nothing against museums. Clearly, I love them, but I want I don't want someone to have to go to something. I want it to be readily available. And I know that we used to say that's an encyclopedia or the history books, but um it is it's just lost right now. We're losing pieces of um to know where you're going, you have to know from where you came from, leave that there and keep it moving. But I also think that when you look at, and I don't want to get too far into history and not go back, but when you look at even the Jewish and African American relationship of standing together and fighting together, most young kids don't even know that those communities worked together years ago. And I'm talking about slavery years ago, before Martin Luther King, which I know like everyone likes to pull up, but before that. So I just feel that I want things to go and I want things to change, but I also would like for the knowledge, good and bad, full storytellers come together and piece it together. So we actually have some uniqueness to our history that we learn and teach kids. So everything is not one sided. My thoughts on that.
I just Alex has a question that he wants to ask. So Alex, you can unmute your mic and ask that question.
Oh, frozen. He's rendering. Should we come back?
I guess we should come back. He's having technical issues though. But not to get off track. It's interesting that you said about teaching history and everything. There is and I'm just going to throw this in there. There was an art exhibit that was supposed to happen a few months ago, back in February, March. I think I sent you the invite to it, where they had redid the cover of. They had run an AI program, and they had redid the covers of a lot of these famous like children's books that we have done that didn't necessarily put a color erase to the characters, and then redid them with like black and brown characters on there. And there was literally it got canceled because everybody was up in arms about redoing history, I guess you can say. So when you speak about, and again, I'm just throwing it out there. When you speak about, someone telling the history, I mean, we just had this was just recent. This was a few months ago before the pandemic started that, people got all up in arms about it. So I think, I don't know if that'll ever come a time where you don't have to take these radical moves about toppling statues to truly tell the story of the people, of the majority that needs their story to be told.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. Alex, you're back. Do you? Oh, we'll come back to Alex again. Um, yes, Brian, you're right. So there's casting. So here's some of the other things. So let's go into the visibility and action and accountability. So they've taken movies. They're taking movies off of Gone with the Wind is now off of the air, off of AMC or where, Netflix, wherever that is, and that has changed now. So it's coming back again, but not right now. So you have movies that are changing. You have, we said, Netflix today. Did you all see what their announcement that they made today? They're giving so many million, and I didn't write it down. Today was a hot day. Today was definitely an accountability day. People have taken this time, and it was just like every time I thought I had covered something, something else had exploded. So they took $1 billion, I believe, dollars. If there's someone on that has to correct them now, please let me know. And they're giving it to HUBC colleges. I know I just messed it up, but to Black colleges, I know I just totally messed that up. They're giving it to those schools so that at least 20 students a year can have a full ride Black colleges if that's where they want to go. So now what I like to say again, thank you, Netflix. Okay. Thank you, Zagatz, for making your statement, and then 2 days later, having a full list of Black chefs and Black restaurants. I say, thank you, everyone. What your board look like, what your office look like, What's your C-suite look like? What is your actual commitment past the knee-jerk reaction to appear you're doing something? And so between the calls that I'm receiving, I'm also saying, yes, I can speak to your company 100%. But is this the commitment that you're making? Or are you looking to really review what's happening within your company? And out of 3 of them that, thank you, 120 million to HBCUs, thank you. That's a lot of money that they're giving. But I still want to know what that commitment is. What is the other part of commitment? And that may just be it. And I'm not saying that they need to do more.
And sorry, can I say something? Again, the last 24 hours has been like just it's been interesting. And so it's interesting that you make that comment and going along with A. Lewis's comment. And I see my counterpart Groom is on the line as well too. We literally were on a call earlier today. Groom, and you can add to this as well too. We were on a call earlier today with a corporation here in New York that purposely. I mean, we were talking to them before COVID happened, and we were talking about working together. But now, especially, I feel that they feel it's kind of advantageous to engage the Village Collective and us in conversations. And some of the conversations we were having were along the lines of putting people in positions of power within your organization, but not necessarily putting them there as a token person in there, but literally giving them the autonomy and the ability to go in there and truly make changes within the organization and to bring other diverse ideas in there. Because as of right now, and they blatantly told us on the call, like they had no other diversity other than white males and then the white woman that we were on the call with. So yeah, I don't know if Groom wanted to unmute his mic and add a little bit of color to that as well.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, certainly the timing was interesting given how much activity is going into this space. We'll always remember the thought leaders that were early, right? The ones that were pioneering and putting dollars in areas and communities that they felt mattered to them, not when it's mutually disadvantageous for them not to be playing a role, one, because they'll have employee backlash, and two, rather than be vilified as the one company or the individuals in a space, a sector that didn't commit dollars, time, effort, it isn't worth the hassle. So we're trying to struggle, and we will look back on this period and sort of hopefully look at who actually committed capital and is really seeking to change, or who was doing it and was trying to save face. The call today was, we're not drawing any conclusions on what the individuals on the call are trying to do, but this is a really advantageous time if you have relationships, and if you don't, as the saying goes, the cost has now gone up. I mean, it's now worth a lot more to access a small pool of individuals' time, and that should be reflected in the price for that.
It's funny because the conversation has been amongst D&I is Black doesn't mean cheap, because all of a sudden as well, everyone's my budget, and I'm like, well, your budget's gonna get worse when you have to bring all the attorneys in. Like, which way do you want to go right now? Like, my goal is to actually make sure your website is looking the right way, that you're speaking to the right people to start hiring. That I saw somebody put in internships. I said that today as well. You need to build from internships and apprenticeships. That you need to throw your fishing, net out wider. I was on phones with recruiters today, and they were telling me that companies are calling them looking to diversify. And I said, well, you all had an internal meeting, because I looked on the website and you're not diversified. And they're like, no, you're right. And so from this call, we want you to speak to our CEO, because we focused on women, and clearly there are white women. So it is, I always say diversity of thought, but I need the accountability for what you put out there. You know, I always say your outside has to match your insides. But everybody's outsides right now they're trying to look shiny. We know who's real and who's fake. You've seen some people step to the plate very quickly. Again, I need it not to be a knee-jerk reaction, but to say, how do we expand the foundation to our company? How do we expand our brand through this conversation? Not, as I said, as a token, I say as a prop. You need to look all levels. Alex, you're back. Did you have a comment that you wanted to share? Can't hear you though.
Sorry.
No.
For whatever reasons, I was having technical problems today. Yeah, but I think we've moved on from the statues and that conversation, so I don't need to lob in. I like the momentum where it's going right now. So.
All right.
Okay.
So thank you. So anyone else, have you seen a company or do you know a company that you feel is doing it right? How about, let's throw in the celebrity aspect of it. I saw Wilmer, I don't remember. You see how I butcher names. But there was a celebrity that came out today that said he's really focused on diversity. He, as a Hispanic man, wants to make sure things are happening in film. There are letters that are going around the film industry, the 600 signatures in the advertising world. I was on that webinar earlier. The 600 different advertising folks stepped to the plate and said, we need to not only have advertising in the front, who's doing the creative? You know, I've always said from day one, I started this firm because I felt if you're going to hire someone and they're going to have that lovely title of diversity and inclusion, head of, global of, people friendly, whatever the heck, you know, they're calling them nowadays. If you don't give them a proper budget, staff, and the right to sit in the advertising, PR, marketing, and sales meeting, and they're not part of your C-suite team, you don't have a D&I department. You don't have a head of someone because you can't do half a job. You know, and what did I say before? 2 weeks ago, they were dismantling the D&I departments. I don't think Tiff's on the call. She hit me the other night, and there was 3,000 and something jobs in New York alone just for diversity and inclusion. How crazy is that? So what's going to happen? You're going to hire someone just to say you hired someone? NFL has come now, had a come to Jesus moment. Now you want to say, everybody's welcome. Kneel if you want, stand if you want. No. What's next? Has anyone asked us what we wanted? And when I say we, I'm saying Black folks, has anyone had a conversation that says, is this progress for you? Is this what you're looking for within the company? Or they just decided again in the C-suite office, we need to do something? If we do not have these conversations together, we will just be going in circles. Yes, I saw you get ready.
Yeah, I mean, there's questions. There's a lot of questions in the box. I think I think you can, as far as you want to go back and like read some of them or read some of the thoughts, that's there as well. I think it might be helpful.
So I'm going to jump the Juneteenth holiday. So, well, we just saw that New York made that a state holiday, I believe. I think it's official today. Like I said, it was a lot going on in the news today. I had a company that reached out to me that I've been working with, and he said, what do you think? I would like to give that as an official paid holiday here in the office. I said, are you going to put context to that? And he said, yes. I said, well, when you send out this email, you need to also say, this is part of our commitment to Black Lives Matter. I don't care what you do on this day, but this is a paid holiday. I said, so when you're doing these things, make sure it's in context so people understand. Otherwise, there's a disconnect. You know, I hate reading and going through. So anyone that has something, jump in, because I hate reading it and it drives me nuts. Turning back and forth.
Anybody who wants to make a comment or a question, just politely unmute your mic and ask the question or make the comment.
Hello. I hope I'm not anybody. It's Kim Ellison. I just wanted to make a statement about, I think a lot of the advertisements I think also the money contributions right now are spotlighting. I think companies want to be in the spotlight, but there's still stuff that's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on that's they're spotlighting so they can distract us from what's really going on. Because I just read about T-Mobile that their chairman got online and pretty much fired all of the Sprint staff. Now, I'm sure most of those workers were minority workers. So it may not be adhesive to this conversation, but I think that there's a lot of stuff that's going on. While the companies are focusing on the money, there's also some underhanded stuff going on that's also affecting the minority communities. Also, just getting back, because I was watching the CNN report today where they had one of the ESPN sports reporters on there, and he was talking again about Roger Goodell and this whole thing with the NFL and then making the statement. He's like, but it's interesting that Roger Goodell has not picked up the phone to any of these owners to say, hey, you know what? Kaepernick is still available. Why don't you, hey, he's still qualified. He's been working out. Do something. So that's kind of like my comment.
No, but that goes back to the whole title of this: visibility, accountability. And so I saw something, I try to read, sorry, the comments about Juneteenth. Why would it be a holiday? Listen, I have never celebrated Juneteenth. I'm not saying it shouldn't be a holiday, but I personally have never celebrated it. I personally did my own research. I mean, I knew exactly what it was, but then I did deeper research. I think if we're going to, again, jump on knee jerk all of this, and, you know, and I say knee jerk not to diminish why we got here and how we got here, because we wouldn't be here at this moment. I truly believe if a white officer did not put his knee on the neck of a black man and sit there 8 minutes and 46 seconds, I need to always bring that into the conversation. Because people have asked me, why is this time different? Why is this an awakening? And so I ask all of my white friends, why is it this time different for you? This is a conversation as African Americans, Black folks, whatever you want to call, have been having. We have it on a consistent basis. It's not like we sit around and that's the conversation, but it is a known fact. So why is this time different? And if it is that different to you all because we are all home with the virus and we watch faces in a camera, which makes a huge difference, then if we want to run to make change, we must make systemic policy changes. I know I keep repeating that part every week, but that is the fact that if we don't change policy and we don't change procedures and we don't make these things lasting, we will just be in a cycle of when the next news cycle or virus COVID-19 part 2 hits, it's just going to get whiplash again. Would they make it a holiday? We're going to have a whole lot of days because there's a lot of things we should be celebrating from a lot of cultures. That's my feeling. So, you know, again, we need to, before we react and knee jerk, where are the folks that's taking a second to go, we need to look at all of this as a whole. Because if you don't think somebody else is going to come back and be, excuse me, I'm not good enough for a holiday, then we're mistaken. And I stand with them as well. But we need to, as a society, we're quick. Make it happen, make it happen, make it happen. And when the backlash comes, they're like, oh, we'll deal with that when we get there. So I
just want to add to that a little bit. You're not going to like me for my answer, but no, I mean, it's been over 400 years. So, I mean, Black people haven't been necessarily asking for a quick change. It's been quite a long time that change is coming. And I think some of these things are not only overdue, but it needed to be done from a institutionalized place. And there's a lot more work that needs to be done in regards to changing some of these atrocities that happen to people of color on a daily basis. And so, again, it just ties into I think these things need to happen quicker than they're happening now. And this just seemed like the catalyst because the backdrop of everything that we had was with the virus. And so I think it was honestly like a godsend that the virus did come. So it had people to pause per se and really take account of, you know, what's right going forward and what's wrong basically. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
No, I don't disagree with you. I'm not going to beat you up for that. We agree on the big issues that need to happen. Yes, Black folks weren't running around saying change, change, change because the conditions of don't ask, you're not going to get it. That's a whole nother topic of conversation. And the next week, I want to speak about using your voice for change, being able to ask for the things you want. If you can't ask at this moment, we're never going to be able to ask for anything. And I think that's all of us collectively together. So as we're making these changes, right? And yes, a lot of them are past due. NASCAR coming, you know, Confederate flag NASCAR, past due. Aunt Jemima, past due. But look, in Aunt Jemima's head, their company, they changed that 2 or 3 times to update it. So in their space, what are you asking for? We updated her. She got a new bonnet. What more do you want from me? Because no one said enough is enough. No. But it also goes back to who's in those rooms holding people accountable. What ad agencies are they hiring and what do they look like sitting in those rooms? So it all is this vicious cycle of ask for what you want, but you also need to have the right people sitting in the rooms to make that happen. Or we have to really start holding companies accountable. Now, there are lists that are going around that this company did that and this one didn't do that and that one did that and this one didn't do that. I think if you follow me, you know that I try to equally oak it, who's doing what right or who is making efforts and who is this deaf to the deaf to the deaf. Let's go back to, yes, Amanda, let's stop asking and do. But we need to constructively do that as well. So let's just speak about Starbucks for 1/2 a second. You know, that's the needle of in my side. That is my thorn. So they put out a lovely statement, Black Lives Matter, all of that. And then they turned around to their workers and said, absolutely no Black Lives, buttons, pins, t-shirts, nothing, caps, zero, nothing. Now you have a uniform. I understand. Respect that. Then everyone was like, you are liars, fake, fake, fake. And 2 days later, they turn around and go, wear what you want. We'll make you gear. This is Black Lives Matter. Come on now. No. They now need to stop. I'm tired writing about them. So do I write about what they do? I mean, something else happened that same day and I was like, I'm gonna let you rest, Starbucks. I'm gonna give you today. My gift to you is me not blasting you again because I just don't understand. This is also company culture. So who is in the C-suite? Who is reaching out? I know a while ago, one of their financial companies reached out to me and they're like, we see that you speak about Starbucks. I'm like, I see that Starbucks is constantly in the news. I'm not making stuff up. I'm just confused on what their company culture is. I'm confused on who's making decisions. You know, so their Abercrombie and Finch came out this week. Was it Anthropology? I posted that they have code names for Blacks or Hispanics when they come into the store, and they code it for them to follow them. This is not only statues and pictures. This is accountability from leadership. And if you don't have anyone that's challenging what's going on, we get stuck in the same space and we don't have time to be stuck at this moment. Yes.
What can we do to, you know, as individuals to challenge some of these spaces? When you say about changing, or I wouldn't use the word infiltrating, but I would say getting into these spaces to make these decisions. Because what you just said about what was it, anthropology? What was it, Sunnies or Shonies? Shonies had the same issue back in what, the early 90s, late 80s, when they would color in the O to let it know, color in the O on the application to let the other person know that it was a Black person that was filling out, it was applying for this job. So it seems like things are happening, you know, generation after generation or year after year until, so I asked this question too, like what's so different about this time? What's so different about what's going on now and people literally cutting these $1 million checks, and then 5 years down the line from now, we're not in the same cycle again, having some of these same discussions about change needs to happen.
I think, and again, I really wish I could be profound with my answers on this. So I'm going to say a couple of things. Again, goes back to the virus. White folks picked their head up and went, oh shit, what is going on? For some, it's not, this is not the world I want to live in or raise my children or be a part of. Right? Then you have the young folks that we always go, they don't care about nothing. Their heads are down here. They rose up. They rose up and they said, not on my watch. And when the governors are saying, okay, you got what you want, you can go back in there, like, no, we did not. Not on my watch. Where are policy changes? Where are the laws changing? How do we get this person out? So they are using their voice. They are using the power of groups. I will always say we have to vote. I will always say the census. I will always say, if you see articles, start tagging people and roundtabling. It makes a difference. These companies have now hired people to do nothing but watch their Twitter feeds and watch things. And speaking, I don't want to put her out there like this, but speaking to someone, and I noticed on the call, they made a comment, and the next thing they knew, their comment had been taken down. They were trying to push it down. That's when we as a collective, all of us together, kind of go, oh, okay, this is how we're playing today. Not today. Comment, boom. That makes a difference. But we also need to, this is why I'm taking the time to start speaking to even more human resource folks. Like, you need to cast your net wider. You have to be part of the front line. Now, of course, some of them aren't getting that directive. So I'm speaking to the CEOs. And we have to make people accountable for what they say they're going to do. And we need to follow them. Pick a company and say, I'm gonna follow them. Yes, Amanda, I said you. Pick a company and follow them and say, who's in leadership? Who's in C-suite? Who's cutting checks? How do we have these conversations? Us coming together on Wednesday nights empowers us to move things forward. It gives us new knowledge of shared collective diversity of thought. We don't all need to agree on here. That's not what this is for. This is for us to be able to have a conversation on where are we thinking about these issues and how can we start to, as a single person or as a group, move things forward. Because if we don't have these conversations, we're just in our own mind going, well, one person can't do anything. Look at Greta. Greta was a one-kid band with a sign talking about climate change. And the next year, this young girl is around the world with people following her, understanding what she was saying a year ago.
Looks like we have, looks like Amanda had a question. So she can unmute her mic and ask the question.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to join this evening. It's funny that this is a great conversation, Leslie, because yes, it was me that talked with Leslie about the fact that one of my former clients put out a blanket statement about them supporting the Black Lives Matters movement. And the truth of the matter is I couldn't stand for it because I knew that was not being reflected within their corporate walls. You cannot just put out a Black Lives Lives Matter statement and a blanket statement when the people of color within your corporate walls are still in fear and do not feel like they're being heard and do not feel like, they have the opportunities for advancement. So, and, just because I work with a lot of these corporations that you're currently seeing in the news right now, it's so important for me to keep them accountable, whether they're still a client of mine or not. And so basically, I had spoken with Leslie, and thank you again, Leslie, for talking me off the ledge. Basically, I did call them out. I did call them out on social media. Said, hey, wait a minute. Like we know that this is not being reflected. You have all of one person out of the thousands of people that you employ in your C-suite. That's of color. Okay. The other thing is that I've experienced some of their corporate culture, I knew for a fact that this was not really something that they do on a regular basis. The fact of the matter is they had brought me in before because people were afraid to speak. They were walking around in fear. The other problem is that I personally firsthand also had noticed and was there and experienced this, by the way, one of their employees in their corporate offices in New York being called the N-word in their hallways. Okay, so when I see something like that happen, and now I see you do a blanket statement about who you're contributing to, that is not okay. This is the reason why we have to keep them accountable. Not only it's not enough to just send out, funds, and it's great that that's a first step. It's a valiant effort, but that doesn't matter if within your corporate walls, your employees are being treated in a different fashion. It's just not acceptable. And it's something that we have to work on is like, okay, what are you really doing with your dollars? Because the other part is with working with these brands is that, and all the commitments that they're making, I'm just going to put it out there. A lot of them have been contributing to some of these for years, and it's just another day for them.
It's a tax write-off.
As well as a tax write-off. Exactly. Exactly. So I'd much rather them be putting those dollars towards the advancement of people of color within their corporations, their own trainings and different things like that, because that is truly where the change is going to begin. As Leslie has already said, it's about policy. If you're not changing your policies, if you're using D&I as a Band-Aid, then it's still a problem. And so how do we make that change? I think the difference is, Micah, as you mentioned earlier, is that we are truly tired. And now people have even more of a voice, and they're tired to the point where they're like, screw it. I don't care if I lose my job. I have to say something. I think that is the difference now than it was back then. That's what I think is different.
And that's why I want to have that conversation. What are the options? What's the voice and how are we using it? Because it is very powerful at this time, But let's think about all the people that maybe put something out and was out facing, whether they did interviews, they spoke for their company, they wrote something. Where are those statements this week? Because now I found out a week later that someone sent the statements out to their Black contingency and put it out on Twitter. Never went on their newswire, never made it to their website. And I was like, what you say now? Because they sent it to me. And I said, I would have reworked the second sentence. And they were like, why, what? And I'm like, you're fine. Like, I'm like, I would have done it a little bit different, but you already have it out there. But come to find out, they only sent it to the Black folks. So I said, so you didn't make a real commitment. Oh, you did the shimmy sham. What's the shelves that like that in Monte that they did? They didn't make a commitment. They just wanted us to be quiet. That's what that was. So where are these statements now? I love the client that called me and said, Leslie, we were going to keep the statement up. Do we move it off of the pop-up and put it in our about? That's where we would like to move it next to the D&I statement. Yes, that's where it goes. They thought to call and just say, we're going to move it. We have all our expect it to be a pop-up all the time. But I think I told you last week when someone told me to go to their site and pop up Black Lives Matter, and in the midst of it, it popped up was a little white baby. And I was like, wow, you ain't thinking about that? And they said, oh, but we worked with someone. And I'm like, I never want to speak bad about any of my colleagues because everyone is on overtime right now. But this commitment, this accountability, not at this moment, it should always be always, has to be a 360. What's your PR folks saying? What's your advertising saying? What's your website saying? What's your Twitter saying? What's happening in terms of the board saying? What's your CC saying? Who is making your voice heard? Because the moment something goes wrong, you know, an employee is happy to tell it. They don't always tell when things are going great. But it's a different conversation when it's good as opposed to when it's not. Micah, did you have something?
I was just sitting here as a member of the choir, shaking my head, agreeing with what you were saying.
You know, is there anything anyone would like to add in regards to just, again, what they've seen, what they would like to see? You know, this is we're at the gate. We haven't crossed any finish lines. We have our toe on the tape and we're just perched to go. Nancy, did you have something? I saw you lean in. That's what I thought. But Kim, what did you say? Yeah, it is. Yes, there's old money. But let's be honest. There are some companies that have bosses that are 26 and the workers are 65. So it's also that balance act, because a couple of the companies that called me was just like, everyone's just ready to run. They're ready to run. They're all young people and they're ready to go and they don't understand how things work. I said, well, did you explain to them how things work? No, but I was like, so how do you expect them to know how it works? Right now they want change and they expect you to move quickly. But there's moving quickly and there's moving strategically. And so for some of the companies that took an extra moment to commit to something, I'm hoping that they took that moment to commit so that they could be accountable, that they knew they could actually do it. But again, it's not we're not in this on a one-legged race. This is a full evaluation and assessment of a company, a brand. What is your company culture? You know, the boardroom table, 100%. Because again, if you have a company and they have to answer to their board and their board does not understand what's happening, it's not gonna happen. Like in the fashion world, a reason a lot of the fashion companies, once they go public, kind of dip down, it's because they now have to answer to those people that put that money in. And they don't understand that you need to go to Cancun to have a party for Memorial Day weekend, or that you need to be in Cannes at the film festival to dress 2 people, but 10 people are flying. They don't get that. That's not how that works. So you also need to understand what your board is made up of, how much you communicate to the board outside of the numbers. And if you are going to be a company now that's going to equate your success with your diversity and inclusion numbers, you are already wrong. If you're hiring people again to show, look at what I have, then you might as well be Aunt Jemima and have a new headscarf on. Band-aids that did colored band-aids, duh, why did that take so long? I know that there's another smaller company that did that years ago because I remember promoting them years ago. But seriously, this is what it took. So I want to wrap up by almost saying, if this is what it took, unfortunately, so many innocent lives that we know of that was in the news to make the change, then it is up to all of us to move forward and continue to push the envelope. If we don't continue to make the change now, if If we don't voice what we're looking for now, then when? And to voice it to the point that in your companies that it is sustainable. Hold them to that. I don't need 15 promises. Give me 2 strong ones and let me know that we can build from that. That is what I wrap all of this up by saying, if you're going to step out, be all dressed up. But when you come home, you can't be in the hoarder's house. You have to have it clean and you have to have it presentable. Is there anything else before we wrap up? I'm thinking about, I always say if there's topics you'd like to cover, please put them in the chat. My thought for next week is, how do we use our voice together? How do you voice it singular? How do you be your advocate, activist, or whatever in your workspace, in your community? But I'm always open to suggestions. And as always, I say thank you for joining. I truly appreciate it. And this is our 10th one. So our anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Good night, everyone.
I figured out what I can do is I can push people into the lobby. So yeah, I can't hear you though. You have yours on mute.
I said, oh, look at you.
Yeah, so I just push people into the lobby to kick them out of the room. They just want to hang out. And it's literally still 2 people sitting in the lobby right now. I'm like,
Because there are some new people that joined.
yeah.
I
So we got a total of, at least when I looked at it 30 minutes before, there was like 28 RSVPs. And at one time there were like 21 people on the call, but consistently it was about 18 to 19 people. So pretty good, I would say.
One guy hit me this morning when I posted something, and he asked me a question, and he sent me a whole long dissertation. Then you're not recording, right?
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay, you cut that out.
I can edit all this stuff out. So.
And then I asked him to feel free to join, and he was on, and he was just like, I'm looking for people to follow that are like mine, and are also looking for solutions and not just everybody's wrong.
Yeah.
And I was grateful that he said, I've been following you, and you're someone I want to learn more from.
Nice. Yeah, we Groom finally jumped on a call, and I was just like, yeah. So we had a call. So this group, I was gonna tell a story. I didn't want to put their name out there, but there's this group in New York City that they have a lot of money, and basically what they do is they handpick CEOs to run companies. So they crowdsource ideas through like their cohort of people, and then they vote on the best idea. Then they basically handpick people to run these companies.
Love it.
With money behind it. But the thing about it though is that they only had white people, and so we were talking to them like back in like January, February, because they saw the Village Collective, and they're like, oh yeah, they have access to the people that we want. And so we were having conversations with them, and then COVID happened, so it fell off. And then just randomly, they hit us up last week, and we're like, they hit us up last week, and we're like, um, they were like, "Oh, can we restart the conversation?" And so, actually, hold on, give me just a moment. Give me just a moment. Oh, there we go. Cool. Okay. So no one else can jump in, just like that person just jumped in right there. I can.
Kelly too.
Oh, but so yeah, they had a conversation with us, and she basically brought up words like, "Hey, we want to do something we want to create a program specifically for Black people, but we don't want to see it as tokenism and everything else. Like, what should we do?" And I'm like, "What? Like, you're asking me?" But sure. I was like, and I told her, I was like, "Here's what you need to do before you do anything, any program you're trying to put out to the public. You need to either hire a consultant that's Black and that's female, or you need to bring someone internally and give them that power to design and what it is before you go to the public and say anything about this is what we're trying to do." Because people are going to peel back the layers and be like, "Hold on, what do you know about this?"
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, so people are, trying to, I guess do the right thing, I guess. But again, we'll see what this comes out to be, because the call after, me and Groom were talking, we were like, "Hey, it's great that you're having this conversation, but are you going to put some real money and resources behind this and give this person the freedom to do it?" Because I suggested, I say, I know a few people that could step into one of these roles as a director there at your company, and I know I talked to the one person, they're like, "Yeah, what I'm going to do is basically fund all Black people. I'm basically going to be just writing checks."
Right.
It's what it is. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it needs to happen. It needs to happen, and it's far overdue. Far overdue.
So the company that I was speaking to, one of them today, was kind of the same thing. Like they were thinking, oh, they need help because their companies that they work with to place people are asking, what do we do? What do we do? How do we say this? What do we go? And turned around back on them. And I was like, look, I know people like Black folks and people of color that senior level, junior level, like I people. So if you're stuck, ask me.
Mhm.
Let me share. But I said, but before you put them in again, you need to look internally. Where are they going? How are they going? What's the conversation?
I agree. I
So
agree.
just told me my interview was good. So yay.
Nice. So the topic next week, what do we?
You got your pen?
It's recording, so I got backup. I got backup as well. Let's go.
Should we do um there's something about using your voice, the strength of your voice, because everyone is asking what to do, what to do, what to do. And now we need to know that it's the time that if you've had ideas in your company, that you get to actually go pretty much to the CEO and have that conversation. Um, so the strength of your voice, the power of your voice, how to use your voice.
How to use your voice? Yeah, I like that. How to use your voice during this time?
Yes,
Unprecedented time. Do you think so? How to use
100%. Nurses and doctors had to use their voices. Why are we using people like so? I want to make it a broad, like let's everything.
Okay. And then what's the three things we want people to think about?
How are you using your voice?
Hmm.
What's the power of your voice?
Okay.
Thank you. What did I say?
How are you using your voice? What's the power of your voice? And then a third one.
Um, their strength in voices? No.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Oh, is there a voice? I'm just going to play around with this, but is there a voice that you're listening to during this time?
Okay.
Because I tell you, for me, all of a sudden, Mark Cuban became one of those people when it came to leadership, and then Como became the leader at one point. Are there voices that you're listening? How do you find a valid voice?
How do you find a valid voice? That's a good one. That's a better
It
one.
will come. It will come. It will come.
I think this was good. I think this was one of our better ones at the 10. Just me. Only because I will say only because I'm gonna push back with you on certain things. There's certain things I'm like, For me, for me, for
But
me.
that's got to be the conversation. That's why I said. That's why I don't want other people to feel like, oh, they're going to go out. No, I want to have this conversation. We don't all need to agree.
Yeah.
This is the conversation. This is the space for us to have the diversity of thought. There's things we're going to agree, the things we're not going to agree, but there's it's for a betterment of figuring out how do we move this, how do we keep these conversations moving.
There's what was I gonna say? I don't know who you know if you know this person, but there was one person that was like they happy they joined this group. I
Yeah, who
can't.
is that?
Cami is what it is. I don't recognize from Cami. So glad I found this group. CAMI. I don't know who that is. Doesn't sound familiar to me. But no.
No, I had like 4 speaking engagements last week.
Yeah, yeah. No, like I said, it's getting there. It's getting there, and people are finding it because somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn today here in Brooklyn and was like, "Hey, a brother." He was like, "Hey, like I heard about you in the Village Collective. Like, how can I join and everything like this?" And um, so yeah, I mean, it's getting out there. It's getting the recognition, and it's yeah, it's amazing what certain times will do and the timing of certain things.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, no, I thank you for going on this 10-week endeavor.
Likewise.
It's been there. So yeah, it's been a man, 10 weeks go by pretty fast. We've been on lockdown for quite some time now.
Yeah, because we were already on lockdown like 2 weeks before. I was just like, okay, we got to do something. I
So
can't do all these individual calls all day long.
yeah.
So
Somebody a LinkedIn message. This person was saying, sorry. Let me see if this person's even connected. Oh, they weren't even connected. They're not even connected to you. So it says, I just attended the Visibility versus Accountability webinar. What a great conversation. I'd love to connect here on LinkedIn. I'm looking forward to the future webinars. So you're doing something, the conversation that you're having, the conversations that you're sparking they're making those riptides because this person's not even connected to you or I. So yeah.
well, I know that one of the women who was on, she was on this other webinar I was on this week, and like at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, she's like, I don't know what you're doing at 5 o'clock, but if you're not joining Leslie Short and the Village Collective, then you need to rechange your schedule. Like, and I was just like, oh my God, thank you.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
that's how it is now. Other people, that's great. We're doing it.
It's great. It's great. All right. Well,
Then
I will get this video to you. It usually takes about 24 hours. I'll get this video to you. Get the email list to you as well. And then I will upload last week's conversation to Anchor. Um, so yeah, and that's the reason why I didn't want to just like I wanted to have like a regular schedule. It sends me notifications anytime I upload it because So I have Apple. I think I may have subscribed to it on one of my phones, subscribed to the platform. So it sends me a push notification anytime that I upload a new one. It says like, visibility unlimited. It has a new episode. So I wanted to make sure that that was on like a timely schedule and I wasn't just throwing those up. Um, and then yeah, it's easier to promote them as well too, to be like, hey, listen to last week's. Here's next week's discussion in your email that you send out on Fridays, to be able to say, hey, here's a direct link. And I think what you may want to do, instead of send them a link to the last particular episode, instead of just sending out a link to your platform, you know what I mean, and
I'm
your
trying to get people to sign up though. That's what I'm trying to do.
but I think people will organically sign up. You know what I mean? If they actually, don't you, I mean, I don't know. You let me know. I think in the thought process, people would say, "Oh, well, this is last week's. I wasn't there for last week's," and that's another reason why to put like keep it on a
Schedule.
delay as well too, because
I
we
agree
just
with you.
had this conversation and then people were like, oh, what was last week's? Let me go back and listen to that. And I think that's where you discover it, where you're like, okay, well, let me subscribe to this and start following this podcast. And I think too, we can A/B test it. We can see what works. Let's try this one week and see how many people start. How many listeners listen to that particular one. If you're promoting just the one episode, and then take a look at it and say, okay, well, not enough people listen to it. Let's try something else. Let's try a different approach.
Right.
So,
Because I know right before we came on, I received an email from someone I'm going to be working with. I think it's next week. I don't even know anymore. And she was like, "Oh my God, I just listened to that. I just learned so much. Thank you." And I think it was, I don't even know if you have that one yet. No, I'm trying to somewhere in, and I don't know if she went on YouTube or she went on the podcast, because I'm trying to do YouTube as I get them.
mhm.
And so there's one that was downloading before we started and then it stopped. But I don't see color. I see green. I've done that one a couple times.
Okay.
So you're going to get that coming over at some point as soon as it downloads. And then I have a couple that I'm doing next week as well. So just trying to get as many that way.
Get an archive. That's what I mean. That's what it is, and it's good. Just send those to me via the Google Drive links,
Right.
and I can. I mean, very easy for me to download them at that point, and then be able to throw them up there. But yeah, I mean, it's content, 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 and the message is getting out there. Like I said, random people that are connected to neither one of us. Um, that are
Well, Fox, I wanted to ask so badly, how did you find me? But I didn't want to ask. They were like on deadline, but I wanted to be like, how did you find me? Because they were blowing up my phone and I was finishing a call. Then I had this long email like, we are not Fox 5, we are Fox 5. Um,
yeah.
you know,
No,
looking for a brand
congratulations.
expert.
Hey, congratulations. I'm trying to tell you. Next time, be like, no, I only give quotes for $100,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Soon we will get there. We will get there.
Yes. All righty then. Well, have a great week again. Great conversation.
When you stop recording, there's something I want to tell you.
Okay. Hold on. Let me see how I can stop that. Stop. You stop the recording and then restart a separate recording.